So, welcome to the new space. So, I'm going to film in front of this shelf, and I realize that there's probably a bit of an echo, and it's going to take me a bit of time to maneuver around and figure out the best place to film and do all the things. But for now, we're working with what we've got. Today, I'm going to choose my TBR for the rest of July, and I'm going to be playing my unicorn games. But I'm not going to be using the letter cards right now. And the reason being that I am focusing mainly, hopefully, just on my owned books that are right behind me on this. Like, I made this unit into a bookshelf, and even though it was for decoration, work with what you got. We'll talk about that in a different video. Today, I guess the first thing we need to do is I need to update you on the bingo board because I'm pretty sure there are now things on the bingo board that weren't even mentioned in my most recent weekly reading wrap up. And you're probably like, Nicole, when did you read that? You'll see eventually. But for now, let's go to the bingo board. So let's talk about what's on this bingo board. In spot number 29, I read Snowflower and the Secret Fan. The free space is To the Bright Edge of the World. Spot number 62 ended up being Howard's End. Spot 52 is Confessions of an English Opium Eater. And I'll eventually talk about how it went from No Longer at Ease to that, but we're not going to talk about that right now. Spot 71 is Station 11, and number 88 ended up being Marina. I also have on spot 13 The Mysteries of Paris, and that was a unicorn pick. All right, so that's my updated board for this month. I did accidentally kick my tripod somehow, so the angle may have slightly changed, but it's fine. Okay, and so now what we're going to do is what I did at the beginning of the month and actually did a week afterwards too, but didn't end up showing you that. You've missed things. I've recorded them. It's not happening. Let me just put it that way. So this is where we're at. And what we're going to do today, or what I'm going to do today, is that I'm going to pull some more numbers for the spots on that bingo board, and I'm going to see if I can find books to match them to. I know this is missing the letter, which sometimes complicates things, but there may still be a chance that I can't find a book to fit one of the prompts, even though I'm now opening it up to all the books behind me. If that happens, I will still have a unicorn pick, which means I will then just pick a book from behind me at random. And I don't know if I said why I'm going to do it this way yet, but basically, even though I now have a space to put these books, we are still not in our permanent home. This is just the home we are staying in until we buy a house in our new location. So I could be here anywhere from a month to 4 months. And during that time, I don't want to accumulate too many books. I have hauled books since moving here, but I read. Excuses. So I do still want my books to fit into the banker's box that I showed in my original No Books, No Shelves, No Problems. I clearly have books. I now kind of have shelves, but I don't want it to turn into a problem, meaning I don't want to have to carry out of this home more than one box of books. So that means I really need to, for the rest of the month of July, up my game and really get reading these books that are on this shelf behind me to make room for the books that are behind me that you can't see yet, as well as the other books that my husband still has to bring in the house because I shipped them here. See, it's already a problem. But we're going to fix it. Namely, we're just going to read and unhaul. All right, so let me go ahead, enough chitter chat. Let's get started in playing this game. I have removed from my number deck all the numbers that already have a book on the bingo board for them. So let's get started. And my first prompt pick is prompt number 11. Prompt number 11 is a romance. Okay, this might actually be trickier than it sounds because I don't read a lot of romance, so I don't think I actually own any books that are just pure romances. So I'm gonna have to hope for some hybrid genres. Okay, that wasn't as tricky as I thought, because I looked at the shelf real quickly and I realized Under the Greenwood Tree by Thomas Hardy. I swear pretty much every Thomas Hardy novel features significantly a romance, even though I don't know that I'd call these romance novels. A lot of them are more like sensation genre. But Under the Greenwood Tree, I don't know a lot about, other than that it's supposed to be similar to Far From the Maddening Crowd, but with a lot less sadness. In fact, I think it's supposed to be like his happiest novel that he wrote. So we'll see. I really read a lot of Thomas Hardy last year and enjoyed virtually every book that I read by him. This is a really short one, which is good because the month has already started, and that means I'm just that much more likely to get to it. Okay, prompt number 2. Oh, the number 17. Prompt 17 is a children's book. So I need to read a book that would count as children's fiction. Ooh, I think I have one in mind. Okay, so I thought my pick was going to be The Phantom Tollbooth, which is right here. However, I'm going based on the genres as categorized as Storygraph, and they do distinguish between young adult, middle grade, and children's fiction, and they consider that middle grade, not children's. So I guess it's going to be a unicorn pick for me. And like I think I mentioned at the beginning of this video, a unicorn pick is just a random number draw. There are 30 books on this shelf. I will pick a random number between 1 and 30, and that will be the book that gets added on for this prompt, which is number 17. And that means for the rest of the month, this is the set book for number 17, even though it doesn't match the prompt. That's just how I'm going to work it out. All right, so here we go. I'm going to read book number 30. Well, that makes it easy. It's the last book on this shelf. What is it? You can see it. I can't see it yet. I'm nervous. Why am I nervous? Oh, I'm not nervous anymore. This is a recent buy. And yeah, it wasn't in my recent book haul. We're not going to talk about it. But we are going to talk about the book. This book is The Year of Wonder, and I had no hesitation doing this. This is a book that's been on my list for a while. I've been actively looking for it in bookstores and have not found it, and was going to order it, but didn't want to order it because mail has become complicated in the last few weeks. And so on our road trip here, I went to an amazing bookstore, which I'll talk about in my next book haul. And I didn't buy that many books, in my defense, but I did buy this one for all the reasons that I just mentioned. And this book talks about all sorts of classical music, and it says classical music to enjoy day by day. And it's literally just set up as one of those books where they have one day of the year and they have a classical music to go with it. They tell you the name of the piece, the composer, when that composer lived, and then they have a whole section where they talk about the classical music piece. And I'm assuming the composer. So I'm really looking forward to listening to this. I was planning on listening to this every single day, like starting basically immediately, but now I can count it as a TBR pick. Now, this is going to be funny because it's not going to be finished by the end of this month for sure. There's no way. I'm not rushing through 365 classical pieces in the next like less than 30 days. So I guess that really means I don't want this to be in my bingo row. Darn. But I'm still happy that I picked this book. The next prompt pick is, I can tell it's upside down, number 18. Number 18 is now starting to be in the row that I don't want, which is any bingo row that would include that 11. Anyway, number 18 is to read a sensation novel. Okay, so a sensation novel is generally a book written around 1860 in Victorian England. It was a whole genre at that time, even though they're also classified as Victorian novels. I do have some Victorian novels on the shelf behind me. I don't think any of them are sensation novels. Oh boy. Okay, shipping books to yourself for the win. One of the books that I shipped to myself here by shipping them to my husband's office is Basil by Wilkie Collins. And Wilkie Collins, I swear, is basically the originator of the genre, so it was a pretty safe pick. The back, very briefly, because if I read the whole thing, guaranteed it's going to spoil the book for us. I am now about to relate the story of an error. Innocent in its beginning, guilty in its progress, fatal in its results. Yeah, it sounds sensational to me. And that's pretty much all I know about this book, but the cover is pretty crazy. Like, what is even going on there? There's a girl walking by or sitting there, and why is this guy in the trees? I don't know. But I'm excited to read another book by Wilkie Collins. I don't feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about this at all, so we'll see what it's like. My next prompt pick is for prompt number 86. Prompt 86 is a random color. So I need to pick a random color and find a book whose cover mostly matches that prompt. I'm not going to go by like 50% or whatever, but there clearly needs to be that color on the cover of the book. Okay, so to pick a random color, I have these Spectrix cards. This is some sort of game that the cards just have like random colors on them, so works for this. Have we ever played this game? No, not yet. It got gifted to us, maybe one day, but for now, works for me. All right, let's see what color I randomly get. Ooh, a green. Ooh, I think I have a book that I need to read this month that has this color on it. Let's see if it's a good match. Okay, found one. Not the one that I was hoping, but I still found one, so that's good. And so to remind you, this is the shade of green that I got, and the book that I found to match is a novel bookstore. And I definitely think there is this green in sort of this mottled part of the grass or carpet or whatever that is that they're sitting on. So I'm going to count that. If it looks like it's not a perfect match, it's because there's multiple shades of green in here, but this is definitely one of them in my opinion. All right, so a novel bookstore. What is this about? I don't know much other than that it features a very bookish town and a mystery because very nice, welcoming, warm people in the town start dying because it turns out somebody is killing the townspeople for giving bad book reviews or something along those lines. I'm very fascinated by this story. I like books that are about books or bookstores or book lovers or that kind of thing. I don't know if I'm going to like the fact that they're getting knocked off, but yeah, it sounds interesting and I'm looking forward to it. So fun that I get to read this month. My next pick will be prompt number 54. Prompt 54 is a poll pick, which means that I'm going to ask you guys to pick one of three books for me. Some book will be picked for this spot. I don't know what it'll be. The next prompt is prompt number 34. Prompt 34 is to pick a book that is set on a different continent. For a book set on a different continent, so a different continent than the last book I chose, I'm going with The Lion Women of Tehran. So that does tell you at least something about the poll pick, which is whatever books I put up are going to be books that aren't set on the continent of Asia. There you go. This book I actually don't know a lot about other than that it is written by the same author as The Stationery Shop, which oddly isn't a book I've read either, but is a book that I've wanted to read. So I'm going to read their other book instead. Okay, my next pick, I'm making a huge pile of possibilities here, is going to be prompt number 72. Prompt 72 is a book that is part of a book project. So I need to, find a book for that. I have a book project in mind, but both the books that are part of that are really long. I'm going to have to think about that. Let me go see what other options I have. Okay, this was actually a hard one to decide on because I have quite a few book projects going on, and so I had to decide which one I wanted to get on the TBR and potentially start working on. I almost went with one of the books for the Druid project. However, that's not a project that has any timeline on it, and the book I chose kind of does. So I ended up going with The Revisionaries by A.R. Moxon, and this is part of a blurbed book project that I am doing, again, for the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do. And it's the book project that I am focusing on for that challenge for the month of July. So what is this book about? I'll just read you the back because it just sounds crazy. A dazzling tour de force about a priest who may or may not be a priest trying to differentiate between reality and fantasy in order to find the source of his faith. Plus, he's under some pressure to save the world. I don't know much about this book, but that premise sounds super fascinating, and sometimes I really get burned by that. So we'll see how this goes. But it's a pretty long book. I'm hoping it reads fast. I'm doubtful. But again, two birds, one stone. That's my justification. Somehow I've managed to still not get a bingo. So my next prompt is prompt 103. Prompt 103 is to read an ebook. And I'm going to pass on this one. I'm going to allow myself to do that because, like I said, I'm really trying to focus on these physical books behind me. So I'm just going to go ahead and take a unicorn pick for this one. Even though, in all fairness, I could get an ebook, I'm just going to not do so. Okay, so my unicorn pick is going to be book number 22. The unicorn picks are liking the very last book on the shelf. So after I've pulled all those, there were only 22 books up there. And so that gave me White Tiger, or The White Tiger. I don't know much about what this book is about, other than I picked it up because, as it says here on this big sticker, it was the winner of the Booker Prize in 2008. And at one point, I thought I wanted to read all the Booker Prize books. And so I had been picking them up as I saw them, in different places for used or free. So that is actually sort of a book project that I'm kind of doing, but I'm not particularly dedicated to it, which is why I haven't mentioned it yet. Next, I pulled number 75. Prompt number 75 is an acorn pick, which I used to have a little acorn bowl. It's that was full of books that were recommended to me, but that bowl is currently in storage. I really hope they wrapped it well. But despite that, I can go ahead and pick a book off this shelf that has been recommended to me. So let's see what I have. So for a book that has been recommended to me, particularly books that have been recommended by people who watch my channel, I have chosen The Death of Ivan Ilyich. And this is actually a bind-up of a couple of short stories by Leo Tolstoy, but I specifically will at least read for this prompt in this bingo space, The Death of Ivan Ilyich, because that was the short story that I had quite a few people highly recommend that I give a try. And I really like Leo Tolstoy's writing, so I'm pretty sure this will be an enjoyable read. Next up, I have prompt number 61. And thank God that finally gets me a bingo, because this pile of possibilities was practically becoming a coverall. So prompt 61 is last letter, first letter, and that means that I need to choose the last letter of the last book I picked, and that needs to become the first letter of this book. Okay, so the last book I picked, you just saw, was The Death of Ivan Ilyich, but the last letter in this story is the letter H, so I need to find a book whose title starts with the letter H. And off the top of my head, I don't think there's any back there because I just alphabetized them by title yesterday. So let me take a sneak peek and double check to make sure I'm not wrong. Sadly, I'm not wrong. There's no books back there whose titles start with the letter H. So it's another unicorn pick for this spot. And for this unicorn pick, I will be pulling number 28. So the last time there were 22 books on this shelf, which means there's now 21. So if I counted down 21 and started back at the beginning, I'll do it just to make sure my math is right. But that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to count down and wrap around. So I'll be right back. Book number 28 was Iceman Awakens, and this is by Sharon Krasny. This is a book that I picked up because it is a book by a local author. Again, that is a prompt off of the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and I wanted to pick up a book by a local author from where I used to live. And so this was that book. You could see it in my more recent book haul. And yeah, and I talk in there about what this book is about, but I believe it's about, the Iceman that got discovered, I feel like almost a decade ago, where it's like a guy really well preserved in a block of ice. And they discovered later, in sort of looking at the body, that it seems like he has some sort of wound that seems like it might have been created by a weapon. And my understanding is that she does a fictional account talking about like how that may have happened. I could be totally wrong on all of that. I try not to read the backs of books too much in depth, if you can't tell. So we'll see. It's a nice short book, which is good, especially since it is part of my bingo line. So let me go back through and I will show you both the stack of books that I need to read as part of my bingo, as well as what I'm currently reading. And in addition to that, I will also include just what the rest of the pile of possibilities will be for this month. So let me get that together and then I'll come right back. Okay. So I've got to admit, when I went back and finally looked at the bingo row, this game was actually pretty nice to me. And it should have occurred to me that it would have been in the end, because I have already read 6 books this month. So it does include those books. And we don't have long to go. So I have got to get to reading some more. But That aside, basically, there's only 2 books that I need to read to get a bingo at this point, and those books are Iceman Awakens, and then this one here I'm just using to represent the poll pick. So whatever your poll pick is going to be the other book that I definitely get to this month. I am still in the middle of reading And Ladies of the Club for my big summer book challenge. And I am also still doing my buddy read with Stormy at Storm Reads for The Mysteries of Paris. So these will be the 4 books that I need to finish reading by the end of this month if I want to get a bingo on my bingo board. And what hitting this bingo will allow me to do is basically unlock the books that I've already hauled and put them on my shelves as books that I can read and choose from. So you'll see that at the end of the month. That's probably when I'll do the book haul, the second book haul. That's what I'm going to do to make myself wait on those, basically. So this isn't too bad. And then you saw all the other books I picked. Those will stay on the bingo board because this is how I mood read, and this is how I'm going to mood read, which is those are my pile of possibilities. So those are the books that I will prioritize getting to if I make it through all of these and then want to read some more. So that's it for today. Hopefully how I'm doing all of this makes sense. If not, it's just because July is a crazy reading month for me because I'm moving. And August should be a lot more straightforward, partially because I'll only have to play this TBR game once. So let me know what you plan on reading for the rest of the month of July. Oh, because I forgot a book. I will also be reading this book as part of my own The Phantom Tollbooth read-along, which will be happening on July 27th. So if you are watching this and July 27th, 2024 hasn't passed yet and you want to read this book along with me, I will be live streaming from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. on that date, and we will just be taking our time and enjoying this book and reading along. And if that date's already passed, you can go watch the recording and still read along. Yeah, so I can't wait for this as well. So I guess that's also added to this pile of possibilities. Well, no, this is my pile of books that will definitely be read. So yeah, all right, let me know what else you're up to, and I'll talk to you next time.